You're probably aware of Trump recently entering office. You're also probably aware of his very interesting choice to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. So I thought, if the actual president is able to make changes like that without even being in office for a month, what decisions would I make if I were president for only 24 hours? Now, by the end of this, I hope to have at least started World War III. It's my first and only day in office. I wake up at the crack of dawn, 6 a.m. I get out of bed and do a couple stretches before a guard approaches me and says, "Do you need anything, Mr. Lug, President, sir?" I politely decline his request before my first change pops in my head. Have you ever thought about how much odd stuff happens in Florida and only Florida? I feel like living in Florida has its own culture in itself, separate from the United States. I'm deciding to make Florida its own separate country, removing it from the 50 states. Now, if I wanted to get crazy, I could get some insane technology with Elon going. We could make Florida a peninsula to an island. I mean, it's halfway there being a peninsula. Why don't we just finish it off? Now Florida is its own independent country, which I bet their citizens can't even comprehend or wrap their head around. And it's probably better that way. I made this wise decision without even having to leave the White House. White House. White House. Now that I'm thinking about it, White House kinda sounds wrong. So I'm gonna change the color of the White House, changing it from white to half black, half red. Tell me that does not sound like the coolest thing you've ever heard. Now obviously the name White House won't fit anymore, so it's gonna be called The Lair, which in my opinion is much more fitting than White House. The word lair just makes the building sound that much more important. If you were just talking in a conversation and happen to say White House, that doesn't sound important. You could just say Blue House. Blue House doesn't have any significance. Slapping on the title lair just makes it sound like a bat cave, something that's actually important and has a purpose. And speaking of things that are important, I was doing a tour in the White House and realized there's no basketball court inside. And yes, inside is different than the outside basketball court that already exists. How is the White House this old but still doesn't have a basketball court? Like, come on. How am I gonna enjoy my long 24 hours of presidency with no basketball court? So I'm gonna get a half black, half red custom basketball court installed the lair, which just matches the theme overall. And don't forget, Kim Jong-un loves basketball too, so we could hit it up in the court if we really wanted to. And just like that, 1 hour has passed in my presidency, and I feel like I'm making some pretty good decisions so far. Another decision of mine would be to change up some laws that need some changes. Legal driving age is 16 to drive by yourself, and it's 15 years old to drive with a permit. Personally, I feel like those numbers need some adjusting. 15 just seems way too high to get your permit. I mean, you're almost an adult at that point. So let's change the permit age to 9 years old. So as long as you're with a parent or guardian, you could be driving on the streets being 9 years old. And we can't forget about how old you have to be to get your license. I think this should be raised from 16 years old up to 17 years old. 16 just seems a little too young to be driving by yourself. I was considering making it 21 years old, but that was a little harsh, so I just made it 17. And speaking of driving ages, anyone that is over the age of 80 is automatically banned from ever being in the driver's seat of a vehicle. I'm sorry, it's just the truth. I'm pretty sure a 6-year-old has a better concept of driving than an 80-year-old does. Like, give the wheel to a 6-year-old, they'll probably figure it out with time. Give the wheel to an 80-year-old, they'll probably croak before they even reach the stop sign. Hey, you see what I did there? And if you are caught driving over 80 years old, you will be jailed until your unfortunate death. Road laws are no joke, and I don't want anyone getting hurt on the road, as modern road laws tend to be pretty strict. Maybe a little too strict. Let's say you're driving home from work, it's a late night, and you're just going a tad bit too fast, just 11 miles per hour over the speed limit. You start to see faint red and blue flashing lights in your mirror and decide to gun it. A split-second decision to run from the cops and attempt an escape. You gain a good distance from the cop and turn into a random road with your lights off. Cop goes flying by the road and has lost all track of you. You, by law of President Mr. Lug, are not a fugitive and are fully wiped of any wrongdoing. That is right. If you are able to make an escape from cops in the Big 25, you deserve your freedom. Now this even goes for other things like breaking out of prison. Breaking out of prison is much harder than you think and takes a lot of effort. It's It's even on my bucket list, as pulling something like that off is an insane feat. Like, come on, imagine just being able to walk the streets saying you broke out of prison. But if you escape prison with the slim odds you have, under my presidency, you're a free man. You can go walk the streets without worrying about ever being locked back up or anyone secretly watching you. Now you might think, isn't this just gonna make things worse? And no, it won't. I think these people have proved themselves worthy. Something I deem not worthy or even unfit is the name of what we call home, the United States of America. I think this name is way too long, and even abbreviating it with just USA is just far too confusing. So I'm gonna change United States of America to DA States with DA spelling duh. This is much more fitting and modern and just rolls off the tongue better. Hey yo bro, where you from? The States? Come on! Like, it doesn't get much smoother than that. Unfortunately, we will still have to refer to the bottom of America as South America because I don't think as president I can really change that name. But if I were able to change the name, I would change it from South America to Stout States. Spell S-T-O-U-T, States. Which also sounds much better than South America. Hey yo bro, where you from? I'm from Stout States. I'm even considering changing North America to Stout States because it just flows so good. But on the topic of changing names, I have a few other things I would like to adjust. I don't like how there's two Dakotas. South and North Dakota is way too much. How is there two Dakotas and they're both in the bottom 10 for least populated states? I mean, that just has to say something about these states. We might as well combine North and South Dakota into one state, and I'll call it Tonka. Now you gotta admit, Tonka sounds so much better than Dakota. It's not even that much different from Dakota anyway. The state of Tonka is somewhere I would 100% live, even though the population is less than 2 million. Which is insane. Let's get our population up, states. Still on the topic of adjusting states, we might as well split Texas into two sides. I mean, that state is just way too large. So we're gonna cut it right down the middle, having a left side and a right side. The left side would be called Big T, and the right side would be called Little T. The left of Texas is taller, so it only makes sense. But you know what doesn't make sense? Taxes. Not only will I be removing taxes from any purchases, I've decided to make the wise decision to raise the minimum wage to $25 an hour. People need to make bread, and you can't make that bread with the minimum wage being like $7. That raise in minimum wage to $25 might be an issue down the line, but I'm only president for 24 hours, so I don't have to worry about it. Now you might be asking, how will things get paid for if there are no taxes? The United States is what, $30 trillion in debt? I don't think a few extra trillion will hurt too much. So as the taxless country, the States, my final decision will be deploying troops to the United Kingdom because beans on toast should lead to the death penalty. Wait. That kind of gives me an idea. Right after I deploy troops into United Kingdom, I'm gonna sign off on a new law which everyone else in Congress better also sign off on. This law makes it so if you eat, make, or think about for too long beans on toast, it's punishable by death penalty. I don't think in today's age enough people are on death penalty, so I think this should solve the problem as well. And with that, my 24 hours of presidency are up. How do you think I did? Personally, I think I did an outstanding job, and I'm gonna vote for myself in the 2028 election. Anyways, I'm done talking. Maybe I see you in the next one, maybe I don't. See y'all, twins.